What you are about to hear happened behind closed doors, away from the cameras, away from the commentary desk, in a hallway at the WWE Performance Center where nobody expected history to be made. A 26-year-old rookie looked the most powerful man in professional wrestling directly in the eye and told him no. If you think you know how the Bloodline story ends, stay right where you are, because what just happened backstage changes everything you thought you understood about this family. The wrestling world has not stopped talking about what unfolded behind the scenes at the WWE NXT Performance Center, and once you hear the full story, you will understand exactly why. Picture the scene. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who has sat atop WWE for years as the most dominant and feared figure in the company, made an appearance backstage that nobody in that building was prepared for. He was not there for an interview. He was not there to film a vignette. He was there on a personal mission, and he did not come alone. Walking beside him was his enforcer, the man they call the Samoan werewolf, Jacob Fatu. Together, the two of them were not simply passing through the halls of the Performance Center. They were hunting for one specific person. Their target was the newest member of the Anoa'i dynasty, the 26-year-old son of the late, legendary Umaga, a young man who goes by the name Zilla Fatu. To understand why this moment matters so much, you have to understand what Roman Reigns has been building for the better part of the last year. The tribal chief has been on a mission, and it is not the mission most fans expected. Instead of simply defending his throne, instead of simply crushing every challenger that stands in front of him, Reigns has quietly, patiently, and deliberately worked to stitch the Anoa'i family back together after years of infighting, betrayal, and civil war within the Bloodline. That war tore the group apart. It started when Solo Sikoa attempted to seize control of the faction after the Usos walked away from Roman and sided with their cousin Jay against him. What followed was chaos. Alliances shattered. Trust evaporated. The most powerful stable in modern wrestling history fractured into pieces, and for a long stretch of time, it looked like the Bloodline as fans once knew it was gone for good. But Roman Reigns does not let go of what belongs to him easily, and piece by piece, he has been working to bring the family back under one banner. The most significant step in that process happened on the June 15th episode of Raw, when Reigns formally welcomed Jacob Fatu into the fold. It was a moment dripping with symbolism. Reigns draped Jacob Fatu with a custom ula fala, the traditional necklace that carries deep cultural weight within Samoan tradition and within the mythology of this storyline. It was more than a costume choice. It was a declaration. Jacob Fatu was now officially part of the family business, standing shoulder to shoulder with the tribal chief as his newest enforcer. Even with Jacob Fatu locked in, there was still one glaring piece of the puzzle missing from Roman Reigns' vision of a reunited empire, and that piece was Zilla Fatu. Rather than sending a lieutenant, rather than dispatching a messenger to extend the invitation on his behalf the way a lesser leader might, the tribal chief decided this recruitment demanded his personal touch. He was going to walk into that building himself and make his case face to face. Here is where the story takes its most fascinating turn, and it is exactly the kind of twist that makes this saga impossible to look away from. When Zilla Fatu made his official debut on the August 11th episode of NXT, he did not walk out to a soft round of introductory applause and settle into a feeling-out process the way most rookies do. He stormed the ring in the middle of the main event, inserting himself directly into a #1 contenders match between Grayson Waller and Cruz del Toro. He was not there to watch. He was there to announce his arrival in the most violent and unmistakable way possible. He unloaded a pop-up Samoan drop that flattened one opponent, followed it with a thunderous Superman punch, layered in a series of vicious Uso splashes, and closed the show with his own signature finishing maneuver, a jumping Samoan spike he calls the Triple Z. It was a full-scale declaration of war delivered in a matter of minutes, and by the time the dust settled, Zilla Fatu was standing tall over both competitors. Then he did something that sent an unmistakable message to the entire roster. He turned, pointed directly at NXT champion Tony D'Angelo, and made his intentions crystal clear. He wants that title. He wants to be the man they call the new champ in town. He wants to be the main one. It was a statement that echoed across the wrestling world within minutes, clips spreading across every corner of social media, fans debating what this aggressive, chaotic, undeniably talented debut meant for the future of NXT and for the future of the Bloodline as a whole. But as loud as that moment was in front of the cameras, it turns out the loudest statement of the entire week happened after the cameras had already stopped rolling. Sources backstage at the NXT Performance Center describe an atmosphere that shifted dramatically in the days following Zilla Fatu's explosive debut. That is when Roman Reigns, flanked once again by the imposing presence of Jacob Fatu, cornered the young rookie away from the eyes of the wrestling world. There was no phone call placed through a third party. There was no go-between relaying instructions on behalf of the tribal chief. This was Roman Reigns himself, standing in the flesh, demanding loyalty and demanding it in person. According to those same backstage accounts, the message Reigns delivered echoed the very words that made him a phenomenon in the first place. Come home. Roman Reigns wanted Zilla Fatu to skip the line entirely, to bypass the developmental stage of NXT altogether and step straight onto the main roster, joining the rest of the Bloodline on Monday Night Raw. The whispers circulating backstage suggest that Reigns has a very specific and very grand vision in mind. He wants a fully unified family standing together on the flagship show. He already has the Usos back in the fold. He already has Jacob Fatu standing at his side as his enforcer. Word is that he is working to bring Solo Sikoa back into line as well, especially given Sikoa's recent string of losses to Jacob Fatu in their own internal power struggle. And now Reigns wanted the final piece. He wanted Zilla Fatu standing shoulder to shoulder with him in front of the entire WWE roster, presenting an image of total and complete dominance that no other group in the company could hope to challenge. But the young star, the son of the legendary Umaga, looked his tribal chief directly in the eye, and according to those present, he delivered a response that sent shockwaves rippling through the entire WWE locker room. He said no. Right there, standing in front of Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu, with no cameras rolling and no live crowd to play to, Zilla Fatu reportedly told the two most powerful men in the promotion that he was not ready to come home yet. He did not feel prepared. He wanted more time. Now, before anyone assumes this was some kind of disrespectful outburst or a rejection of his own bloodline, understand that this was something far more nuanced than that. This was not Zilla Fatu turning his back on his family or on his heritage. This was a young competitor rejecting the shortcut. This was a rookie who wants to forge his own path, build his own legacy from the ground up inside NXT, and prove himself on his own terms before he ever considers standing next to the tribal chief on the grandest stage in professional wrestling. Take a moment to really sit with the weight of that scene. Roman Reigns carries an aura that has made grown men, seasoned veterans, former world champions, visibly nervous just standing near him. His presence alone has ended arguments before they started. And yet here was a 26-year-old rookie, barely a few years into his professional career, standing his ground and turning down what most performers in that locker room would consider the offer of a lifetime. Think about the sheer audacity required to do that. How many young wrestlers dream their entire careers of getting a face-to-face meeting with Roman Reigns, let alone being personally summoned by him and handed what amounts to a golden ticket into the most dominant faction professional wrestling has seen in decades? And Zilla Fatu turned it down. Not out of disrespect. Not out of rebellion. But out of a fierce, burning desire to become his own man before he becomes anyone's teammate. Wrestling analysts have already begun weighing in on the wisdom behind this decision, and the reaction has been overwhelmingly in favor of the young star's choice. Veteran wrestler and outspoken commentator Matt Hardy pointed out something worth considering carefully. Joining the Bloodline too early in his career could easily result in Zilla Fatu getting lost in the shuffle of an already stacked roster of larger-than-life Samoan performers. It is difficult to stand out, to carve a distinct identity, when you are surrounded by that much star power and that much history. Zilla Fatu, according to those who have watched him closely over these past few weeks, appears to understand that reality better than performers twice his age. He is playing a patient game in a business that constantly tempts young talent with instant gratification, and that kind of restraint is rare. Digging deeper into this decision reveals an even more interesting layer to the story. Multiple reports circulating within the wrestling industry indicate that the original plan all along, going back months before his debut even happened, was for Zilla Fatu to begin his journey in NXT, following almost the exact same blueprint that Solo Sikoa followed before him on his own path to the main roster. Zilla Fatu has only accumulated approximately 3 years of professional wrestling experience at this point in his career. 3 years! That is an incredibly short runway compared to most of the performers he would be stepping into the ring against on the main roster, many of whom have a decade or more of experience refining their craft. He wants to establish himself as a competitor first. He wants to prove he belongs on his own merit before the conversation shifts to who his family is or who he is aligned with. He wants to become the main one on his own terms, earning that reputation through his own performances, before he ever becomes simply another name on the Bloodline roster. There is something almost poetic about the position Zilla Fatu now finds himself in. By refusing the tribal chief to his face, by having the composure and the conviction to decline an offer that would have fast-tracked his entire career, he has earned a completely different kind of respect from the locker room and from the fans who are watching this unfold in real time. It is the respect reserved for a competitor who genuinely knows his own worth and refuses to let anyone, even Roman Reigns himself, define his path for him. And by turning down the invitation, Zilla Fatu has thrown a significant wrench into Roman Reigns' larger plan to present a fully reunited Bloodline standing together on Raw. Multiple reports suggest we are on the verge of seeing Solo Sikoa formally handed back over to the tribal chief following his recent string of defeats at the hands of Jacob Fatu, which would seemingly complete the reunification storyline that has been building for months. But the puzzle is still missing a crucial piece. Zilla Fatu has chosen a different path. He has chosen to fight his own battles first, to build his own reputation brick by brick inside NXT, away from the shadow of his family name. There is also a deeply human element to this story that resonates beyond the choreography and the storyline mechanics of professional wrestling. Zilla Fatu is the son of Umaga, one of the most feared and respected competitors of his generation, a performer whose legacy still looms large over the entire industry years after his passing. Stepping into a business carrying that name comes with enormous pressure and enormous expectations attached to it. Every match Zilla Fatu wrestles will inevitably draw comparisons to his father. Every big moment will be measured against the legacy he inherited simply by being born into this family. Given all of that built-in pressure, it makes complete sense why he would want to establish his own identity as a wrestler first, on his own terms, in his own matches, before attaching himself to the biggest and most scrutinized storyline in the entire company. Joining the Bloodline immediately would mean his early career gets permanently filtered through the lens of Roman Reigns and the larger faction narrative. Waiting, building his own reputation first, gives him the chance to be remembered as Zilla Fatu the competitor before he is ever simply known as the newest recruit of the Bloodline. Fans across social media have been picking apart every angle of this story since word first broke, and the reaction has largely mirrored the sentiment shared by analysts like Matt Hardy. There is a genuine appreciation, even among the most passionate Bloodline fans who desperately want to see the full family reunited on Raw, for a young performer choosing patience over instant stardom. In an era where instant gratification often wins out, where shortcuts are frequently taken in the name of building buzz quickly, there is something refreshing about watching a young talent deliberately choose the harder road because he believes it will make him a better, more complete performer in the long run. Of course, no storyline of this magnitude comes without its skeptics and its debate. Some fans have pushed back, arguing that turning down Roman Reigns, even respectfully, even for understandable reasons, is still an enormous risk. The tribal chief does not take rejection lightly in the world of this storyline, and there are questions swirling about whether this moment plants the seed for future conflict between Zilla Fatu and the Bloodline rather than a smooth eventual reunion. Could this rejection come back to haunt him down the road? Could Roman Reigns view this as a slight rather than simply a young man wanting to prove himself? Professional wrestling storytelling thrives on exactly this kind of tension, and the fact that fans are already debating the long-term consequences of this single backstage moment shows just how effectively this angle has captured the audience's imagination. There is also the question of Tony D'Angelo and the NXT Championship picture to consider here. Remember, Zilla Fatu did not simply debut and disappear into the background of the roster. He directly called out the champion, signaling immediately that his goals inside NXT are not modest. He wants the top prize. He wants to prove himself against the best competitor the brand currently has to offer. That adds an entirely new layer of urgency and stakes to his decision to stay in NXT rather than jump straight to the main roster. This is not a young performer content to simply exist on the roster while he waits for his moment. He has already set his sights on the championship, and that kind of ambition only reinforces the idea that his rejection of Roman Reigns was about proving himself, not about avoiding a challenge. Picture how this story could realistically unfold from here. Perhaps Zilla Fatu spends the coming months building a rivalry with Tony D'Angelo, working his way toward a genuine championship opportunity earned entirely through his own performances inside that NXT ring. Perhaps along the way, Roman Reigns continues to check in on his progress, watching from a distance, testing his patience, waiting to see if the young star lives up to the enormous promise he showed in that explosive debut. Perhaps Jacob Fatu, now firmly established as Reigns' enforcer, ends up playing some kind of mentor role toward his younger relative, offering guidance without ever pressuring him to abandon his current path. Or perhaps this rejection plants a much darker seed, one where Roman Reigns' patience eventually wears thin, setting up a genuine confrontation between the tribal chief and a member of his own extended family who dared to say no to him. Every one of these paths feels plausible given everything we have seen from this storyline over the past several months, and that unpredictability is exactly what makes the Bloodline saga must-watch television week after week. What we do know for certain is this. Zilla Fatu has already proven, in a matter of just a few short weeks, that he possesses both the in-ring talent and the mental toughness to make a serious impact in this business. His debut performance showcased a physical, hard-hitting style reminiscent of the family that raised him, while his backstage decision to decline Roman Reigns showcased a maturity and self-awareness well beyond his years of experience. Whatever direction WWE ultimately decides to take this storyline, one thing has already become abundantly clear. Zilla Fatu is not simply riding on the coattails of a famous last name. He is actively working to build something that belongs entirely to him. This entire situation also raises broader questions about legacy in professional wrestling and what it truly means to inherit a famous name inside this industry. Throughout wrestling history, we have seen countless examples of sons and daughters following their parents into the business, and the results have varied wildly. Some have leaned heavily into their family connections, using the built-in name recognition to fast-track their rise up the card. Others have deliberately distanced themselves from their lineage, determined to prove they can succeed purely on their own individual talent. Zilla Fatu appears to be threading a careful needle between those two approaches. He clearly has not hidden from his family's legacy, he wears the Anoa'i name with visible pride, and his in-ring style pays clear homage to the hard-hitting, aggressive tradition his father helped popularize. But at the same time, he is refusing to let that legacy hand him anything he has not personally earned in the ring. That balance, embracing your heritage while still insisting on earning your own respect, is a difficult one to strike, and the fact that a 26-year-old competitor with only 3 years of experience seems to already understand this instinctively speaks volumes about his long-term potential in this business. As this story continues to develop, one thing is certain. The Bloodline saga remains the beating heart of WWE storytelling, and every new development, every backstage whisper, every unexpected twist adds another layer to a narrative that has already cemented itself as one of the greatest long-form storylines in the history of the industry. Zilla Fatu's decision to reject Roman Reigns' personal invitation may end up being remembered as a minor footnote in the grand scheme of things, or it may end up being remembered as the defining moment that shaped the entire next chapter of this dynasty. Only time, and the storyline still to come, will tell. For now, all eyes remain locked on NXT, watching closely to see how Zilla Fatu builds on the momentum of that explosive debut, watching to see if Tony D'Angelo takes the bait and addresses the young star's bold championship call-out, and watching to see whether Roman Reigns respects the boundary that was just drawn or whether the tribal chief decides to apply even more pressure in the weeks ahead. The stage has been set for what could be one of the most compelling underdog stories this company has told in years, a young man determined to build his own legacy in the shadow of both his legendary father and the most dominant faction professional wrestling has ever seen. That is the full story as it stands right now, and this is exactly the kind of layered, character-driven storytelling that keeps this Bloodline saga at the center of the wrestling conversation week after week. This is Wrestling Juice, bringing you every twist, every turn, and every backstage whisper as this story continues to unfold. If you enjoyed breaking down this moment with us today, make sure you smash that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update, and drop a comment down below letting us know exactly where you stand. Did Zilla Fatu make the right call by looking the tribal chief dead in the eye and turning him down, or should he have taken the golden opportunity the moment it was offered to him? We want to hear your take. We will see you in the very next breakdown right here on Wrestling Juice.